Welcome to another episode of Healthcare Connections podcast, powered by Healthcare Compliance Pros. I am your host, Jeremy Winn. Our purpose for this podcast is to introduce you to key topics and experts in the healthcare industry to ensure you have what you need to successfully manage your practice. Please subscribe and follow us on our social media channels to make sure you don't miss any new episodes. If you have recommendations for guests or topics for this podcast, email me at jwin@hcp.md. With that, enjoy this episode of the Healthcare Connections podcast. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Healthcare Connections podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Winn, the Director of Sales here at Healthcare Compliance Pros. Really excited for today's episode. I've got Stewart Gandolf on here. He is the CEO of Healthcare Success. Stewart, welcome to the show.
Jeremy, thank you for inviting me. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I love doing these things. They're a lot of fun for me.
Well, I appreciate it. I've been excited for this one. Why don't you give our audience a brief background introduction to yourself, much more so than I did just with your title and company.
So, sure. Thanks again, Jeremy. So, I've been doing healthcare marketing for almost 3 decades. So, for a while, stumbled into it, used to work for great big agencies. And I and some of my colleagues back in the 90s were among the ones that sort of built the field. We used to work with, back then, we would consult with like 1,000 practices every year and do seminars around the country. Actually, it was probably more than that. It was a lot. And I would do 100 or two a year myself. So started the company after that in the early 2000s, to the mid 2000s, 2006. Today, we work mostly with multi-location businesses, larger businesses, but we still work with smaller practices too sometimes. But the concepts will work for big and small today. So glad to jump in.
Yeah. So, I think marketing is often underlooked in healthcare. It's not as easy just opening a clinic and open your doors and patients flow to it. So I thought this could be really beneficial to bring you on, Stewart. And let's start with really the power of marketing and how you can use marketing to grow the profitability of your practice.
Yeah, Jamie, this is something I like to talk about a lot. Those of you that know Scott Becker's Healthcare, I did a podcast on the topic alone once, and just did a webinar with MGMA about this same topic. And I also talk about this at private equity conferences. But I won't rest, Jeremy, until America gets this, or at least American medical practices. It's my burden to bear. So no, I've been doing marketing a long time. And back when I first started doing marketing for practices, they looked at it it was kind of evil. Still, a lot of people don't like it, but back then people would spend money, Jeremy, to come and see me and then argue with me all weekend. So, okay. But today, what I would argue is the focus is, as it should be, largely on revenue cycle management, maybe opening new locations, ancillary services, bringing in new doctors. These are all standard things, right? And making sure we're billing and collecting and doing all those things correctly. And those are all, I don't want to undermine the value of any of those. Those are vital. You need to have that. But I would argue that marketing is oftentimes the biggest open or opportunity that practices just underestimate. So, and I understand why, especially the smaller ones, they may not really fully understand the power of it. But even large ones, Jeremy, just because they're big doesn't mean they're necessarily savvy in this field. So some are amazingly savvy. Some of our clients are very, very savvy, but some are really just completely new to it. I had a meeting in Utah recently with the CEO of a 100-location healthcare provider. And he's like, Stewart, I like this, but I've never done more than just donuts to referring doctor. So it's like, this is new to me. So it's not just you if you're new to this. So I would say, though, when you do marketing properly, when you think about it strategically, it can be a whole new source of revenue and patients and profitable. So that's something that I would just say, and we'll talk about this in just a moment, of some of the ways to do that. But I guess I can start that part of the conversation. So as a tip to think through, okay, what does that mean, Stuart? Well, usually when we build a marketing plan for any business in healthcare, I break it into 6 categories. So those 6 categories can include, first thing is their brand. Like, what is your brand? And do you have a brand? Is it Dr. Taylor, or is it, the Head and Neck Center, or is it, bespoke audiology or whatever it is, right? It's some name. And by the way, back when I started doing this ages ago, nobody had brand names. But today a lot do, and they want to have a brand name. They want to have a bigger name for a lot of reasons. It's easier to recruit, it's easier to build a name that you can scale. There's a lot of reasons to do that versus your own private individual name. But building a brand is like the first category of strategies. Second would be digital marketing, which is what everybody's excited about these days, and rightly so. Third, kind of forgotten but still powerful, is traditional advertising. That has a place in many practices. Um, Fourth category, most people would not think a marketer would think of this, is the patient experience. And that means everything from the phone call to becoming a patient to keeping them loyal after. That's a big part of marketing. And most people miss that entirely. Another category they don't usually think about is professional referral building or doctor referral building. How, especially if you're a specialty practice, it's the lifeblood. And people will say to me, wait, Stewart, we're a specialty practice. We don't need marketing. It's like, oh, yes, you do. What do you think those physician liaisons are doing for you? What? And then if they don't have a physician liaison, then I'm like, well, you're really behind. So anyway, so that's like a combo. And then finally, the sixth area is broadly PR. So all of these things are part of a marketing plan. And when we work with a client, we suggest you think about all of these and like, what really is our objective? What is our go-to-market strategy? What is our budget? What makes us unique? How do we position ourselves from everybody else? And so the key factor there is so many people, and this by the way includes amateur marketers, rush straight to the promotion. So in marketing, if you go to undergrad marketing classes or graduate school marketing classes, they'll often talk about the 4 Ps, which are price, product, place, promotion. And then depending on the model, they oftentimes will make it 7. So now we add promotion, packaging, and positioning. So it's a thing. But in any event, everybody wants to jump straight to the promotion. And they're like, no. Let's do our homework first. What is our pricing strategy? What is our place? And place, by the way, it could be market, it could be your facility, it could be telehealth. What is our, what makes us stand out? Then we worry about the product, getting that right. Then we worry about the promotion side.
Absolutely. That really leads me into my second question. What are some of the biggest mistakes? You just highlighted one of them, but be curious to hear what are some of the other ones you see.
There are a lot of just, I sometimes talk about 7 mistakes. Let's see how many I can come up with for you in rapid fashion. Maybe 7, maybe 3, maybe 10. I don't know. But there's going to be a few. So first of all, again, just marketing to market, that's a problem. Number 2 would be looking only at the cost, not at the ROI. Everybody focuses on the cost, and it's like, okay, what it costs matters, but what you can make matters, right? So that's a mistake I see all the time. And I understand back when when it comes to gambling, by the way, I estimate my entire life losses at about $210. It's like $10 on one-off bets here and there. And once I was conned into spending $200 at a high stakes table, which lasted like all 3 minutes.
Yep.
So not a big gambler, but I am willing to invest, 6 figures in marketing every day and 7 figures for clients, some of them. So, because it's all about ROI. What is your ROI? So that's a big one. Number 2, just sort of hiring anybody. Like I always say, if you're going to work with a marketing company, at least find someone with experience. I mean, so often it's like, okay, well, and this isn't a pitch, I'm just saying, but like you could add us or somebody else has healthcare experience, but you hired some guy.
Yep.
Like, what is that?
Yep.
Another mistake would be everybody gets a vote. Marketing, there's something about it. I don't know what it is. Like the doctors have a vote, the staff has a vote, the guy who cleans up, the plant waterer guy has a vote, the patients have a vote, everybody has a vote. It's like, okay. So if we do that, though, then we lose any essence to our messaging, right? I would say another thing is jumping straight to digital marketing without even thinking about a brand. Another mistake would be jumping into marketing without having a proper website. So your website today is the front door of your business. It really is. So this is something that's evolved, right? When this first came out, like in the 90s, like even in the 90s, we're doing websites, right? They weren't very good back then, but they were out there. So but that back then it was, the Yellow Pages or a doctor referral. But today, I don't know, a third of patients will find you online if you're doing a good job with your internet marketing or more. But even those that don't find you will check you out. They'll go straight to your website for due diligence to see if you're any good. So that's another mistake we see. let's see, how many are we at so far? Forgetting about doctor referral building is another one. If you're a specialty practice, like not having a system to do that. And then I would say the most egregious one, this is probably about 7, and I can stop here, is answering the phone. So the phone is the biggest debacle of my 20-year career, more than 20 years. It's if you think about like the telephone companies, how they have the last mile, or the cable companies going, it's easy to do it on the street. Bringing it to the house is very expensive and tedious and hard. And that's the way it is with marketing. Bringing the call in, all the work that we do is lost in an instant if we don't handle the phones. And so it's been the biggest challenge as a marketing company ever, because we'll drive patients calling and they say, well, there must not be good patients because nobody's converting. Like, well, you're not answering your phone, or your person is rude, or you're closed during the calls when they come in, or. And most people recognize they're weak. One thing that's really interesting about that is the options for AI call agents answering the call. I think that's going to be transformative. There's a couple things happening right now in the world of marketing that I think are transformative. Like, this is something that I've been literally waiting for my whole career doing this. The idea of because I used to even think about, Jeremy, starting a call center. It's a high labor, low margin business. I never did it, but we actually would have trainers. We used to have two full-time six-figure trainers going out to doctors' offices, training them how to answer their phone.
Yeah.
And that's not economical today. So we have outsources for that. So we know people who can do that for you. But a lot of people, I think, are going to leap right over that and go to AI, because if you can handle most calls with AI agents, that, and then some other technologies like AI-based call tracking, there's just a world of innovation happening right now that will sort of leapfrog old long-standing problems. So that's exciting to me.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. I think you did hit about 7.
Yeah.
And it is critical that the most obvious thing about answering the phone and just being good on the phone can lead to so many issues if you just don't, perfect that one thing.
Basically, it's a multiplicative effect. So I have a blog that we talk about a lot with 4 quadrants. And the first quadrant is the latent demand. The second one is what happens in the machine when you're doing like Google Ads, for example. The third is the landing page itself. And the final part is the call and the conversion process. And so the challenge there is that any one of those is broken, the whole thing is broken. It doesn't matter. It's a multiplicative effect. On the other hand, if you can increase the efficacy along each line, and by the way, the conversion process today is on larger campaigns is really complex. There's a lot of moving parts and technology to make that work. And another thing that I've been waiting for my whole career in this is being able to track to actual patients. That's increasingly happening with our clients. That's really challenging because of the cost and the AI and the technology requirements, but that's really exciting. Not just tracking the cost per call, but the cost per new patient. What did you get on an ROI basis is possible and increasingly becoming routine. So that's exciting too.
Love that. Let's talk digital marketing briefly, and in particular with more and more people, you're reading every day that search is changing on Google, Chat GPT, right? Other AI tools are becoming more important. So what's some of the advice you can give to these practices on how they can grow their visibility, still on Google, but also as they look at Chat GPT?
Yeah, so it's funny. Coincidentally, I just did last week a webinar on this very topic for about 200 hospitals. And when we're done in about 8 minutes, I've got a client call about this very topic.
Yeah.
So it's the topic of the year. So first of all, excuse me, Google in particular has been going to what we call zero-click search for a decade now. This is not new. Right. So when those little things called featured snippets, or people also ask, or the Google Map Pack, or the sometimes there'll be summaries of a given, especially with healthcare, like what is a hernia, and it'll have all that stuff. So Google wants to keep you in the Google sort of ecosphere forever, and that's been their plan for a long time. And that's why increasingly there's been zero-click search, where people get answers to questions right away. The first time this started happening when people go, what time is it? Nobody wanted to go look for a website. They wanted to get the time. They don't care, right? So that's been increasing over the years. But in March of this year, well, first of all, ChatGPT came on the scene. Was it last year, or like maybe the year before?
Yeah.
But what happened there? I would argue Google isn't making these changes because it wants to. Google is because it has to. In fact, if you look back at the news, Google has been developing AI. Just it's really hard to shoot yourself in the foot and say, we've got all these Google ads making us billions. Let's stop doing that. Nobody wants to do that. So, but ChatGPT put pressure on them. So what happened then is March of this year, Google started favoring AI overviews more than results in many specialties, but healthcare is the leading one. So immediately, clients, non-clients, anybody in healthcare was experiencing drops of traffic by 20%, 30%, 50%. Some companies like HubSpot, which is known for its incredible SEO, apparently I've read through third parties lost 90% of its traffic over the last couple of years. So these are cataclysmic events because these content creators are not able to drive people to their site anymore. It's being pulled up in AI. So as a practice, sorry, I have allergies. I'll entertain your readers or your listeners. So with the introduction of AI overviews and ChatGPT, first of all, ChatGPT has very small market share still, but it's growing at an exponential rate. So at this discussion, it's about 2%, but it has an incredibly outsized impact. When people are looking for like best doctor near me, they believe ChatGPT. There's something about it. They believe it more than they do Google, in my experience. So they come in pre-qualified. We get the same thing when people find us as an agency through ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever. They're like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad to meet you. I've heard you're the best." Like they just take them.
We see the same thing with our marketing efforts. Those leads seem to convert much higher.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then the AI overviews are also a thing. So let's talk about in shorthand how to solve this, and then long term. If you're interested in diving deeper, you can go to our website. We'll talk about that in a minute because I have all kinds of free stuff on the website, more than we can cover in this time. But at any rate, the big things you can do is I break it down into the following categories. So when we're talking about search engine optimization, which by the way, nobody can agree on, is it GEO now? Is it AIEO? Like, is it AEO? Like, what is it? Let's just call it SEO. They're still searching, right? They're still searching, search optimization. So it used to be primarily in recent years, the content you have, and then technically making it easy for Google to understand what you have. A third category, there was some other stuff that mattered. For example, here talk about backlinks, which I'll allude to in a minute. There's other things, but those were like primary. And so, amateur marketers would just do more blogs, right? We want more content, more search terms, we'll just do more blogs. So today, those two things matter a lot still, but also what matters more than it used to is, for example, your ratings and reviews. They mattered before, don't get me wrong, they mattered before, but they matter more now, a lot. And also the frequency or the recency of the reviews, and the frequency matters a lot. So some of our clients, like the one I'm talking to in 3 minutes, we just changed platforms to one we like a lot. We've got several that we refer to, and several we don't. And the one we don't like is one of the famous ones. So really increasing the velocity and frequency of your reviews matters. Another thing that really matters is your brand. Do you have a brand? Have you built a brand? How are other people seeing your brand? That matters a whole lot more than it used to. And then also the Google My Business profiles matter a lot. And then on top of all of that, goes really sophisticated and far more than we have time to talk about today. Again, there's stuff on the site you can take a look at if you want. But having things like, for example, schema, which is a way of telling Google and ChatGPT and everything else what the site is about, organizing it in a specific hierarchy. So having a lot of these sort of tools in place to help each LLM, large language model, understand who you are. So it's a meaty topic. It's a really important topic. But one other thing that I would suggest is that you can look at is digital PR as another category to help build the brand online, to be mentioned online over and over again, which is, I do these podcasts. I don't, I reached out to you guys, but I don't usually reach out. Usually people reach out to me, but that's really just because I thought we'd be good for your readers.
Right.
But we get invited up like at least weekly, and I accept maybe every other one. But it's all part of the PR, right? It's part of doing this. But we built our business since 2006 with SEO in mind, right? So we've been a leader And I'll leave with this thought. We are a leading healthcare marketing agency. We're one of the largest, if not the largest, independent. There's larger agencies for sure, but in terms of independent, we're larger and more sophisticated than really. And I'm not saying people tell me that. People who want to buy us tell us that all the time. So, we're out there and we're here to help. To wrap this up, because I've got to run to my next meeting, I can just tell you that for your audience, if they're interested in listening to me or learning from us, this isn't a sales pitch at all. If you have a larger multi-location business, we're probably a great fit for you. If you're smaller, we have lots of resources that are free you can check out. So we have on our site webinars, we have podcasts, emails, blog. You can follow me on LinkedIn. So if you just go to Stewart Gandolf, LinkedIn/Stewart, you can find me. I'm really easy to find. Just look up Stewart Gandolf, Stewart. Last name is Gandolf, Gandolf. And if you want to contact me, you can do it through LinkedIn or our website.
Perfect. Stewart, this has been really good. And again, it's hard to cover these things in the time that we have. We may have to do a follow-up and dive deeper on one of these topics in the future. But thank you so much for coming on. Really good information, really valuable insights, and look forward to having you on as a guest again in the future.
Thanks, Jeremy. Take care.
Thanks, Stewart.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Healthcare Connections podcast. For more information on the topic we covered today, you can reach out to me or to our guest. For any additional information on healthcare compliance pros, feel free to email me at jwin@hcp.md. Don't forget to tune in next week. Thank you.